All right, thank you for joining us at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here at the Cambridge House Silver Summit with Trace Mayer of HowToVanish.com and RunToGold.com. We spoke to him a few times recently about Bitcoin, and a lot of people are joining on the Bitcoin bandwagon now, but Trace is really a Bitcoin pioneer, making how-to guides, how to understand it, different interviews and videos that he's done to teach people what to use Bitcoin for and why he thinks we should use it. I'm always fascinated with him because he's a big hyperinflationist guy. You know, I don't want to just throw him in that category, but he gets what most of you watching this get when it comes to buying gold and silver and being worried about the economy. But here he is buying Bitcoin. When we first talked to him, I think it was $11. Today it's around $30. Trace, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Trace, it's kind of had this parabolic move, Bitcoin. So typically after a parabolic move, something comes down crashing, and maybe it's not over, but it just has a kind of a reset. Are we looking at that at $30 Bitcoin?
No, I don't think we're looking at really an unsustainable parabolic move. In fact, I think Bitcoin might be undervalued today relative to where it was even 3 or 4 months ago, and that's based on the fundamentals of the Bitcoin market. So
fundamentals being
so ironically or paradoxically, even though the price of Bitcoin has gone up, it's actually gotten cheaper.
Is this because of the finite supply and then now there's more demand? Is that why it's fundamentally has more value?
Yeah, you're hitting right on the issue, because you got finite supply that's known to all market participants, so there are really only two variables in the function: speculative demand and transactional demand. And so in this case, based on the fundamentals, kind of honing in on transactional demand, I think we're seeing that increase. And based on the metrics that I follow, because of the increase of that and the rate at which it's increasing relative to the price, I think it's actually getting cheaper.
When we spoke to the Everbank president back in September at the Casey show, he had mentioned that Bitcoin, they were looking into it as far as letting customers use Bitcoins, have a savings account in Bitcoin. Do you see any development, anything major like that as far as with the Bitcoin for transactions? Major companies, anybody?
Well, yeah, there have been some major companies that have adopted it: WordPress, Reddit, Mega Upload. It's also possible that there could be in development some way to easily integrate it with the accounting or the finance software so that larger companies could easily adopt it. For example, NetSuite or Oracle or SAP, one of these large providers of the accounting software, they could build a module that could fit right into it and be deployed, and then, you know, these companies that use that software, whether it's a Fortune 50 company or even one of the smaller ones, they could flip the switch and have it integrated right into their everything that feeds through for all of their accounting and reporting statements and things of that nature. And so is something like that in the works? I doubt it, not with like SAP. I doubt anything like that's in the works yet, but it just goes to show that if something like that were in the works and were to be deployed, and it would have numerous advantages for those customers. Chargebacks, transaction fees would be greatly reduced. For example, if Amazon.com were to shift all their demand into Bitcoin, and pay the transaction fees, it would double their net income approximately. And so there's a lot of money to be made for these companies disintermediating from Visa and MasterCard. They don't have to deal with fraud compliance, they don't have to deal with PCI compliance, they pay lower fees, they don't have chargebacks. If they could have an easy way to integrate it into all of their accounting software, then yeah, we could see massive adoption in that case. And if it's real easy to do by just making an additional plug-in right into their accounting software, for Bitcoin to be used in any type of finance like that, being held in treasury balances, making payroll, I mean, you're looking at least $1,000 a coin, easy.
Now, how about Amazon.com? They have a digital currency now. They just announced, at least I saw the headline on MarketWatch. Is their digital currency going to eventually be a competitor to Bitcoin, or is it not as open?
I don't think so. These Amazon coins, they're really just Amazon gift certificates. They're not a digital currency in the traditional sense because You can't send them peer-to-peer. So, I mean, it's like a gift certificate. You use them to buy stuff from Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, so they're right there, like, they're a gatekeeper, and I don't see that becoming much of a threat. You know, it's no different than Facebook credits or Chuck E. Cheese coins, you know, to go play skee ball.
Yeah. Now, in the early stages of Bitcoin here, which we still are in the bigger picture, we're still at the pioneer level. Is it good for anybody to? How much wealth should people put in this? Consider putting in this, because I mean, it is very speculative in the sense that you can't really use it mainstream yet. So I can't honestly say that it is money, because it's not easily acceptable. I know the definition is there for money. Unit of account, medium of exchange. Yes, that's all there, but it's not easily acceptable. Is this just a speculation right now, or a speculative investment right now, or do you think we're moving closer to the end of the pioneer stage to where it's going to be more stable?
I think that it's you know, you could look at it like a local currency. As Rush Limbaugh said, it's the currency of the internet. It's got a larger market cap than Tuvalu's currency. Tuvalu's a country. Like, it's bigger than their money supply. So I mean, this idea that not widely accepted, it is a local currency that's easily adaptable to the internet, and it's getting increasingly accepted. How much people should actually allocate to it, I think that should depend on how much they use the types of services that are in the Bitcoin economy. You know, if they're making one purchase, like for their virtual private network, their VPN, and they make that purchase once a year, and it's $40, yeah, I mean, don't keep too much of your treasury balance in there, because you don't have a lot of transactional demand for Bitcoin. For people that want to engage in speculative demand, well, I think that that's completely up to whatever their risk tolerance is. I think that between 5 and 20% being held in gold and silver is a good idea, and you know, holding 1.5 to 5% in Bitcoin, I think, is like kind of a fundamental base in your asset allocation is a good idea.
What's your current price target for Bitcoin in the short term for 2013? You think we've reached the high?
No, I don't think we've reached the high at all. We're knocking on the door of the previous high. You know, I think at 31.90 a coin, we've hit up to 31.50 already just in February.
Last time it hit this range,
yeah, back in July.
Did it sustain itself like it is now? Because now it's been at least up here for like a week, 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of mulling along up here. People have been selling out a lot of coins at, you know, around 31, just under 31. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, you know, shifting hands. Whereas last time it got, you know, it ran up in this bubble, and then the major exchange, there was a security incident, and then the exchange was closed. So kind of like the markets being closed after 9/11. You know, that was a major blow to the Bitcoin economy that was still nascent. It was still a very new economy at the time. Now we've had so much built out underneath. You can buy pizza for Bitcoins, new site.
Yeah.
You know, 3 years ago it took 10,000 Bitcoins to buy a pizza. Now there's a house being listed for 10,000 Bitcoins, a $300,000 house. So there are a lot more things you can buy. There's VPN services, WordPress is accepting it, Reddit's accepting it. You know, all of these things didn't exist last time. And accompanying all of that are hundreds of thousands of people individually getting in and using Bitcoin and accepting it for their products and their services, like you. And you know, that's all much more stable fundamental demand, both speculative and transactional, as opposed to last time.
If you could just talk about, it's the two biggest factors for me reason I like it is it's a private currency as far as who owns it, and it's tax friendly. It's beyond tax friendly.
It makes taxes much more consensual.
Yeah, if you could just expand on, you know, basically the Bitcoin economy. If people were probably gonna ask, well, what happens if I buy Bitcoin at 11 and I sell it at 30? Do I owe taxes on that money?
Don't really want to get into that on here because it's a complicated issue and issues. But we wrote, my partner at How to Vanish, Bill Rounds, He's a California attorney. We co-authored A Lawyer's Take on Bitcoin and Taxes. We have 108 legal citations. We've gone through a lot of the case law from a U.S. perspective to help answer some of those issues and questions for people. It's like $5. Like, you know, go buy it. Save you whatever your attorney would charge. You know, that by what, like 3 minutes of your attorney's time. Couldn't even start the research for that. And we hand all the research on a silver platter, because there's several reasonable arguments that people can use if they want to be tax compliant, and I'd recommend that they be tax compliant. That guide's written for them. For the people that don't want to be tax compliant, like the people selling drugs on Silk Road, they're already involved in that type of stuff anyways. And that's what got Al Capone. He was brought down on tax charges, not on necessarily his alcohol stuff. That's what kind of got him.
Trace Mayer of howtovanish.com. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, and just to add a little bit about the price, you know, last time we had the run up from a nickel to $30, and then it crashed down to $2. So this time around, you know, we might see it run from $2 up to say 300, and then it might crash back down to $20 or something like that if we get an unsustainable run from the speculation. So, you know, just to throw some numbers out there, I don't really have any idea where I'd decide to start selling part of my Bitcoins, but it could be a wild ride. and the Bitcoin Stock Exchange is moving out. I'd like to particularly hit on that issue. In January, Satoshi Dice was trading at 0.0037 Bitcoins. At the end of January, it was trading at 0.0075. In the meantime, the exchange rate had gone from $12 to $20. And that makes the total ROI for people who bought Satoshi Dice at the beginning of January 207%.
And this is the exchange? An exchange?
Yeah, there's a Bitcoin stock exchange. So more demand for Bitcoin is happening as a settlement currency. This is an important point. Financial markets are getting built out with stocks and options and futures. There's listings of companies. Satoshi Dice has an $18 million market cap, larger than a lot of companies here at this investment conference. And they earned $700,000 in January alone of net income. And they pay that out in dividends. So you're earning Bitcoin dividends that you should pay taxes on, but there's no 1099. There's no financial intermediary, and it's listed on a censorship-resistant stock exchange. Well, now, you know, Satoshi Dice is paying dividends and the Bitcoin rate's up at $30. And based on their earnings so far in the month of February, even though they're going to earn 25% less Bitcoins, the dividend is going to be higher than it was in January.
Yeah.
So if you can buy into companies or make investments into companies in the Bitcoin space that have earnings in Bitcoins and have this rising exchange rate, there's a lot of opportunity for wealth accumulation and creation. So you can bet on Bitcoin itself as an ETF over the whole space, or you can get in and invest in companies on the specifically. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in the Bitcoin space. You'll want to only invest in things that are legal in your jurisdictions. Like, I personally don't like Satoshi Dice. I use it as an interesting financial example. But, you know, that shows, because when people buy Satoshi Dice, it's decreasing demand for Bitcoins. But
it's kind of like when people buy the mining stocks, it's decreasing demand for gold.
Or for dollars, because you're settling in dollars, right?
Yeah.
But now Bitcoins are being used to settle financial instruments and stocks and things like that. And so there's a lot of upside in all of this.
Yeah.
Anyways, just a little food for thought and some numbers, you know. 207% return on one Bitcoin company in 1 month. Where else are you going to get a 207% return
right
somewhere?
now? Thanks so much.
Get access to our special report on Bitcoin by going to futuremoneytrends.com/Bitcoin. What it is, how to invest, and what's more to come. Bitcoin investors saw a 250% return in the last 3 months alone.